The real shock wasn't the 2 lines on the stick. It was the moment I realized I had already started believing it before she even said a word. My name is Ethan, I'm 31. I'm not the kind of guy who cries easy. But that night, April 1st, when I walked into the apartment after work and saw Emily, my girlfriend, sitting on the sofa, her hands trembling slightly and her eyes I had a sudden gut feeling that something was about to change. She looked at me, her voice small and tight with tension. We need to talk. I froze for a second. That sentence, to any man, has never ever been a good omen. Emily handed me a pregnancy test. 2 clear, undeniable pink lines. I was blindsided, not because the result was unbelievable, but because in that instant, I saw something she probably hadn't realized. I had already pictured this. Maybe not right now, but someday, when we were stable enough, when everything was ready. My eyes burned. I wasn't crying from shock. I was crying because, in those few fleeting seconds, I had believed we were about to become parents, that this was the moment it truly began. I pulled her into a hug. I told her we would make it work. I could take extra shifts. We could turn the home office into a nursery. I said so much, and that's when she laughed. It wasn't a laugh of relief. It wasn't a laugh of emotional surrender. She burst out laughing. The kind of laugh that sounds like the perfect closing curtain on a self-directed play. April Fools. Ethan, I recorded the whole thing. The stick is just a cheap one I bought online. You look absolutely hilarious. You know that. I stood still, the feeling inside me. It freefell, not because she played a joke, but because I had just given my genuine, honest self to something that never existed. The apartment went completely silent. The music was off, and no one was talking. Only Emily's laugh echoed, piercing the comfortable quiet I used to think was so soothing between us. I stared at her, not understanding why I was still standing there. Maybe my body hadn't yet caught up with the overwhelming emotion. Maybe my brain was still trying to convince itself that this was all just a simple misunderstanding, but it wasn't. You seriously looked hilarious, Ethan. She said it, still giggling, even raising her phone as if rewatching my expression was the most entertaining thing in the world. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't want to, but because I didn't know how to respond to the woman I loved choosing to laugh at my most heartfelt emotions. I walked into the bedroom. The door clicked shut behind me. There was no immediate call, no footsteps following. It wasn't until everything had gone deathly quiet that I heard a soft tap on the wood bay. You're not actually mad, are you? It's April Fools. Everyone's pranking today. I didn't answer. I sat down on the edge of the bed, running a hand over my face. I wasn't angry. At least, that's what I told myself. In reality, the clearest thing I felt was a profound sense of being dropped. It was like confidently stepping toward a brightly lit door thinking it led to our future, but when my hand reached out, I realized it was just a flimsy backdrop, staged for a laugh. My phone buzzed softly in my pocket. I opened it, my eyes unconsciously fixing on the inbox. The confirmation for the 2-week trip to the mountain cabin, the anniversary getaway I'd meticulously planned to celebrate 3 years together. I looked at the refund policy. My hands were steady, just oddly calm, perhaps, if my deepest hope could be treated as a joke. Then, a trip no longer had a reason to exist. I hit cancel booking. It cost me the $150 cancellation fee. The rest would be refunded. I got up, opened the bedroom door, and stepped out. Emily was sitting with her phone, her initial excitement slightly diminished when she saw my face. I looked at her. The 3-year anniversary trip. That was also a joke. I just cancelled it. Her smile disintegrated instantly. What are you saying? I held the phone screen out toward her. April Fools. I thought you'd find it funny. She was stunned. I had never seen that expression on her face, not pure anger, not sadness, but the complete inability to accept that the line between a joke and genuine pain had just been crossed against her. That's not the same. I was just making a harmless joke. She burst out. I looked at her flatly. Me too. She tried to speak again, but nothing coherent came out. I walked straight to the kitchen, opened the cabinet, and pulled out a bottle of water. Not to drink, just to have something firm in my hand, because right then, I realized my hands had started to feel faintly cold. That night, I ate alone. She retreated behind the bedroom door. No one said another word, but there are some things that don't need to be spoken for people to understand that, from that moment on, everything had irrevocably changed. 7 days had passed since that night. The apartment was still the same, the old walls, the smell of the morning coffee I usually brewed, the warm yellow light from the desk lamp still hitting the corner of the living room every afternoon. Everything looked as it did before, except the feeling between us. That was fundamentally changed. Emily didn't joke about the pregnancy test again, but she started to explain, sometimes gently, sometimes with a touch of irritation. Ethan, you're blowing this way out of proportion. It was just a joke. Everyone does pranks on April Fool's Day. I didn't answer, not because I had nothing to say, but because, if some things need to be explained, it means the other person never truly understood them in the first place. The atmosphere tightened daily. On Tuesday night, she called Lily, her best friend, putting her on speakerphone, and recounted everything, not how it actually happened, but how she wanted it to be perceived. He literally cancelled our anniversary trip just because of one small joke. Can you believe that? I remained silent. Lily was quiet for a moment, then spoke. I mean, pregnancy is kind of a heavy topic to mess with. Emily cut her off sharply. You're on his side now. Lily's voice lowered. No, just saying, maybe it wasn't funny to him. The call ended sooner than expected. 3 days later, she called her sister. I only caught parts of the conversation. It was just for fun. He's reacting as if I betrayed him. The person on the other end seemed hesitant to speak, pausing. I didn't catch every word, but the last sentence cut clearly through the air. Sis. Some jokes leave bruises that don't fade. Emily threw her phone onto the sofa. She spun toward me. So now everyone thinks I'm the bad guy. I didn't reply. I just looked at her. She pushed further. Do you think that too? A long silence stretched out. I think I spoke slowly. When someone takes another person's sincere reaction and uses it for their own amusement, the person who gets hurt isn't the one lacking a sense of humor. She didn't say anything else. That evening I ate in the kitchen. She ate in the bedroom, not because we were actively fighting, but because we had moved too far apart to sit at the same table without feeling the distance between us. And perhaps, the thing that scared me the most wasn't that we were arguing, but that we were both beginning to get used to the silence. For days after the call with her sister, she started avoiding direct eye contact with me. It wasn't anger anymore. It was more like someone hesitant to face something that had slipped out of their control. That evening, while I was brewing coffee, Emily walked out of the bedroom. I checked the flight tickets. She started, still not looking at me. We can still go on the trip. If you rebook right now, the fees won't be too bad. I set the coffee mug down on the counter. I took my time before answering. I cancelled it, I said softly. I know she didn't react the way I expected. No anger, no blame, just sadness, I thought. We deserved a fresh start after everything. I watched her for a moment. Then I asked, do you really think things can just go back to the way they were? With one trip? She was silent. I continued, if what you faked that day became real tomorrow, would you feel ready? She didn't answer right away. After a while she whispered, no, I wouldn't be ready, but I didn't think you wanted it that badly. I looked straight at her. I've been preparing for 6 months. Her expression froze. I walked into the home office, opened a small drawer, and took out a piece of wood that had been carefully sanded smooth around the edges. I handed it to her. It was meant to be a part of the baby crib I commissioned a craftsman to build. I didn't tell you, because I thought we'd talk about kids when we were both ready. She looked at the piece of wood. Her hand trembled slightly. Ethan, that wasn't a joke to me. Even if it was years from now, I wanted that to happen, because both of us genuinely wanted it, not because someone thought it made good content for a TikTok post. Emily bit her lip. I heard her draw a deep, shaky breath. I'm sorry. No tears, no attempt to hug me, just that one phrase. Several heartbeats too late. I nodded gently. I know. But sometimes, an apology that comes at the right moment heals things. If it comes too late, it only makes the listener realize that everything has already shattered. She struggled to keep her composure. I don't want to lose you. I looked at her this time. My eyes held no anger or reproach. Didn't want to lose you either. A long pause stretched between us until the moment I realized you treated my deepest emotions like a clip you could post online. I don't know exactly when I started packing my bags in silence. Maybe it was on the 9th day after the prank. Maybe it was when I opened the wooden cabinet, saw the set of books I bought when we first moved in, and realized she hadn't touched them in ages. No explosive fight broke out. No one slammed doors or threw objects. It was just that we spoke less and less. Evenings, sitting together on the sofa, turned into 30 minutes each with a separate phone in hand. Meals at the same table became 2 food trays in 2 different spaces. I overheard her calling Lily again once. This time her voice wasn't indignant or defensive, just tired. I don't know what to do anymore. He isn't angry. He's just gone quiet. I stood outside the bedroom door, not walking in. She didn't know I heard her. On the afternoon of the 12th day, I started taking clothes out of my side of the closet. I folded each piece neatly, I wasn't rushing, and my hands weren't shaking. Emily walked past the doorway. She watched me for a few seconds. "What are you doing?" "I'm packing." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Are you leaving?" I looked up at her. There was no accusation, no anger, just calm acceptance. "I stayed before, even when you weren't ready, even when things weren't easy. But this time, I think maybe the person who needs to stay behind and reevaluate things isn't me." She stepped into the room, walking closer to me. "Can you please not go? We can try to start over." I shook my head. "If we ever start over, I want it to be because both of us genuinely want it, not because one of us is terrified of losing the other." She didn't try to touch me, maybe because she knew that if she did, I wouldn't leave right away. But in that moment, holding on would only make the wound deeper. Before closing the suitcase, I placed a piece of wood, the intended part of the baby crib, on the bedside table. "When you truly know what you want, keep this, whether it's for me or for someone else." She looked at the piece of wood. Her tears fell. "The first time since that day, Ethan, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done it." I stood up and pulled the suitcase toward the door. "It wasn't the joke that changed everything," I said slowly. "It was the reason you thought it was worth joking about." I left the apartment when the clock read 5:17 p.m. The moment the door closed behind me, I heard the hinges make a soft, sighing sound. It wasn't the kind of sound closure makes out of anger, but more like someone accepting that what needed to end had finally ended. I didn't take much. One suitcase of clothes, a few books, and the coffee maker Emily had bought me for my birthday last year. I almost left it, but then decided to take it along, not to hold on to the memory, but to remind myself that things were good once. The first night in the new apartment, I didn't turn on the lights right away. I stood in the empty living room, looking out the window. Outside, the city was still bright, people were rushing, cars were driving. It felt like the world hadn't noticed that something inside me had just collapsed. And I realized nobody really needed to notice, because when people hurt, the thing they need most isn't attention from the outside, but acceptance from within themselves. Every morning, I still brewed coffee. At first it was mechanical. After a few days, I started drinking slower, tasting the bitterness more. And one morning I realized it wasn't as bitter as the things I used to hold back in my heart. Once I found myself wandering near the store where I'd chosen the wood for the baby crib. The owner recognized me. "We still have the design blueprint you sent. Would you like to proceed with it?" I looked at the sample wood plank resting near the counter. This time there was no sharp feeling of disappointment, just peace. "Not now," I said. "But maybe, someday." The owner nodded. He didn't press for details. I started writing small notes in a journal. Day 3. Didn't wake up in the middle of the night. Day 7. Listened to an old song. Didn't feel the sharp pain anymore. Day 10, realized I hadn't mentioned her name in a conversation with a colleague. Day 14, this morning's coffee was mild enough for me to finish the whole cup. Emily's text came on the 14th day. I took the video down. No one is seeing it anymore. I truly thought it was a funny moment, but looking back, I see how lightly I laughed at someone else's true feelings. This time I didn't maintain silence. I simply texted back, "I know, no blame. No demand for an explanation, because at some point you don't need to win the conversation anymore. You just need to learn how to walk away from it without carrying anything heavy." I placed the small wooden box on the shelf, next to a new potted plant. Engraved on the box were the words, "Things worth waiting for," and for the first time since the day everything fell apart, I understood that not every hope has to disappear. It just needs to be given to the right time and the right person. Some things cannot be forced to arrive early, nor should they be held onto for too long. And perhaps, letting go at the right time is also a way of preserving the final shred of respect we have for each other. I don't remember exactly when I started living normally again. Maybe it was one morning when I made coffee without thinking about whether today would be better than yesterday. Maybe it was the moment I walked past the bathroom mirror and realized my eyes were no longer avoiding my own reflection, that it wasn't because I had forgotten, nor was it because the pain was gone. It was simply that the grief had found a place to rest quietly. Occasionally, I still drove down the street leading to the old apartment. Sometimes, I looked up at the window. The warm, yellow light was still on in the evenings, just as before. I didn't stop. I didn't look to see if she was standing there, because even if she was, I would only smile softly and keep walking. Because the only thing I was certain of was, some things cannot be undone, and even if I could go back, I wouldn't choose to walk in that direction again. I still keep the wooden box by my bookshelf, not as a symbol of waiting, but to remind myself that not all hope is misplaced. It just needs to be reserved for the person who truly cherishes it. I am no longer angry at Emily. Thinking back now, I understand. Perhaps she just didn't know then that the boundary between a joke and a real wound is sometimes only separated by a single heartbeat. I used to want to be right, but in the end, the important thing isn't who was right or wrong. It's what you take away from the moment that hurt you the most. I learned that some words should only be spoken when we are mature enough to take responsibility for another person's feelings. Some jokes should only be shared with those who know where the line is drawn. Some doors should only be closed once, and when they are shut, don't try to reopen them just for the sake of familiarity. And some people, if they ever return someday, make sure they come back to walk forward with you, not just to remind you of the moment that caused you to stop. That night, before turning off the light, I said to myself, if that day ever comes, the day it's real, let it arrive in peace, not from a joke. Then I turned off the bedside lamp, not because I had forgotten the past, but because I was finally ready for what was yet to come.